Hi, Steve Riley. Welcome back to Great Practice, Great Life. And today we have a special guest, a legendary guest, a guest who was a speaker at our 2018 summit, who my wife to this day still quotes to me. That is John Morgan. John, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. We really appreciate you making the time and squeezing us in. One of the things you talked about at the summit that my wife keeps quoting to me, is she goes, John Morgan says, grow or die. And do you remember this keynote that you gave for us?
Yes, yes. And I've said that many times in my life, everywhere. Grow or die.
It's like a mantra for you. So I would like to ask you a couple of questions about it. Where did it come from? Like, what happened in your life? What was the insight? What was the moment? What's the inspiration for this?
Well, grow or die, it's just kind of, and sometimes you're growing just to stay in place. Sometimes you can just dig and dig and dig and dig and go nowhere, but you don't go backwards. Sometimes when you're growing or dying, you're just running, but you stay in place, and that could be good enough. There have been times in my career, for example, where huge practice areas have been eliminated by tort reform. Okay. So, for example, once upon a time, a big part of my business was nursing home, med mal, workers' comp, and personal injury. Nursing home was about 20% of my business. And then it was legislated basically out of business. So now I'm looking at a business where I have 20% of my revenue gone. You're only making about 25, 30% anyway off your revenue. So you're like, is this the end of the world? What I said then, I called it filling holes, these different areas. We got to fill this hole. I got to fill the nursing home hole with something new, either more personal injury, more medical malpractice, more workers' comp, or new practice areas. And so I would say during that period of time is when I really started talking about growing or dying. And to fill that hole, all I was wanting to do was to stay even. It wasn't like I was going up. It just was I wasn't going down. And then I started some new practice areas, got into social security, figured out a little bit of way around some nursing home cases. And growing kept me flat. And flat was okay for me. And even though I'm trying to grow or die, I'm not going up, but I'm not going down. Now, what you want to do optimally when you're growing or dying is you want to go up. I mean, if you're going to spend all this effort to grow, you want to go up. And mainly that's what I've done my whole career is I haven't just stayed in place. I've I've gone up. And, I started with me and another guy. Now there's 1,100 lawyers and 6,000 people. So I obviously believe in growing or dying. And that's how it all came to be filling holes.
So when did you set that as a grow or die strategy? Because at one point you were obviously very Florida dominant, very Florida centric. Then you went southeast. Did you choose locations based on the tort law in that jurisdiction? Or did you just expand geographically? What was the strategy?
There was two strategies. In 2009, I wrote a speech called the 21st Century Law Firm. And it was about what's the law firms going to look like in the 21st century, uh, dealing with tort reform and autonomous driving vehicles. One day there are going to be no automobile accident cases because everything's going to be self-driving. They're already out there, taxis. And so I started thinking about the 21st century law firm. What does the 21st century law firm look like, especially with no cars? And so I started building the firm on a parallel path as if the cars were gone. So I'm running a parallel path. The cars are still here and still a big part of my business, but I'm also building the second. I did a speech called The Train and the Stagecoach. Once upon a time, there was a stagecoach that took everybody everywhere. And they heard about this thing called a locomotive or a train, but they really weren't worried about it. because they said, well, it's a big hunk of metal and it moved like 3 feet down Dodge City one time. What do we have to worry about? Then they heard it went further and further and further. That's what the driverless car is. We're the stagecoach and they're the train. One day, the train's going to come, and and everybody just wants to ignore it because it's easier to ignore a problem than face a problem. We like to be ostriches, but the train is going to come. Now, the stagecoach operator said, well, what are they going to do? Go through mountains? How are they going to get over water? How are they going to get around? Guess what? They did. So I looked at the stagecoach and the train as I looked at autonomous vehicles. And I said, I got to start building my company, my 21st century company. So that was number one. Then the second idea converged with the stagecoach and the train. And that was a question I asked myself. I said, what would Google do if it was a law firm? I asked myself, like, what would Google be? My answer was they would be everywhere for everyone. They would be in all 50 states. They'd be Los Angeles, DC, everywhere. And their business would be twofold. On one hand, they would fulfill a lot of the cases themselves, they'd work the cases. But a big part of their business is they would take their marketing dollars that came in and they would refer these cases out, thousands of cases out to great lawyers, not good lawyers, great lawyers all throughout the United States. And when we refer cases out, our margins are like 85% because we don't have lawyers, we don't have legal malpractice, we don't have brick and mortar. It's that profit on the referrals out is unbelievable. So this firm that you're looking at today is a convergence of the stagecoach and the train, the 21st century law firm meets the Google law firm all at the same time. And what you have is, you know, Morgan and Morgan 2.0. So Litify was a big deal. We sold Litify at like a $400 million valuation to Besmer. We sold 60% of it. Now they have 40%. We still own 40%. So Litify was a big deal. So when I look at it as Morgan 3.0, it looks like this. It looks more like Amazon than it does like Google. In other words, I'm fulfilling cases all over the country. I'm not necessarily handling. Instead of handling, you know, 50% of the cases, I might be handling 20% of the cases at Morgan and Morgan because the profit margins are so large. Because and Amazon is such a presence that people feel like it's easy. It's easy. It's reliable. They know it. So Morgan and Morgan 3.0 is I move more from looking like Google to looking like Amazon. That's Morgan and Morgan 3.0. That whatever you need for your, if you have a workers' comp case in Iowa, if you have a social security case in New York, if you have a labor law case in California, you just come to me for your jelly bellies and I deliver it. I've got Litify. All my vendors are set up on Litify. I communicate very quickly. I give it to one. If they turn it down, I give it to the second one. If they turn it down, I give it to the third one. If they all three turn it down, the case is no good. If the lawyer number one is being too picky, I may move him to be lawyer number three and give the cases. But inside of Morgan and Morgan, if there's going to be autonomous cars, there's going to be a boatload of products liability. There's going to be a boatload of Thelma and Louise situations where they just went off the cliff in their Tesla. There's going to be that. There's always going to be Social Security. There's always going to be workers' comp. I do a big practice area with premises liability. A lot of people handle premises a different way. They handle it just kind of like a car crash, and you can't. So I've got premise liability. If you're in one of my lawyers, there are people that just do premise liability. That's all they do. So I'm building at the same time a firm within a firm that operates as if there are no car crash cases. And so when that day comes, when the 3.0 comes, I hope to have branded this thing so well that we're Amazon like, that this is where everybody goes. I've got another domain that I'm going to roll out that I always, I've already rolled it out called, I think it's the greatest domain ever, called injury.com, that I bought for a lot of money. And I own injured.com. And so that's how I kind of see it, Morgan & Morgan 3.0.